Shalom and welcome to Yeshiva B'nai Noach. I'm Tom Averna as we continue with our beginning biblical Hebrew course from the First Hebrew Primer book, which you have all purchased, I'm sure. Chapter 7, we're in the look at the perfect tense. We'll be reviewing information about that again from the book First Hebrew Primer, Adult Beginner's Path to Biblical Hebrew. Let's start with the oral review. I will read the Hebrew, and then you can practice it along with me or practice it on your own. And then also, though, please spend the time to do the translations. This is all review, so make sure you just, in chapter 6, you have the vocabulary information up to that point, and that will enable you to do the translations of this. As I've mentioned before, we are continuing with the idea that on the video, I will be reading the Hebrew just so that you get practice with that. The translations for the exercises, not the oral review, unless there seems to be a great need for that. I will put the exercise translations up on Quizlet so that you can get the translations as well. But for this, it's again just very basic things that you're translating, the vocabulary that you've worked with before, so it shouldn't be a great problem. So just practice through it so that you get the translations, that it's comfortable as you read it, and you get it. So I'll just do the first one as an example. So you're going to, first of all, as you practice this, I would read the sentence. Ha'ach halach el haaretz, and then translate. So just do one sentence at a time, and then the translation. So the brother went to the land or country, Aretz. So you read the Hebrew and then translate. Read the Hebrew and then translate. Read the Hebrew and then translate. So as you've done that to begin with, then, and you stop the video before you start, you stop the video here, and then when you come back to it, we'll read either together or you'll listen to me read across here, and then practice it as much as you need to. But the main thing that I want to make sure of is that you're getting your reading practice in for the Hebrew, but your vocab practice you need to do on your own, and don't stop that. Keep doing that. So again, I will begin reading with the oral review, chapter 7, line 1. Ha'ach halach el haaretz. Ha'achim halchu el ha'ir. Hem averu el ha'ir. Hana'arot averu el haaretz. Number 2. Ish shalach behema lemoav. Anashim shalachu behemot lemoav. Isha shalacha ebed lemoav. Nashim shalachu avadim lemoav. Number 3. Banot mimitzrayim averu lerushalayim. Banim mimitzrayim averu lerushalayim. Banim uvanot amadu b'mitzrayim. Hema avaru lemitzrayim v'hem amadu b'mitzrayim. Number 4. Baderech el heharim amad na'ar. Baderech el heharim amadu na'ar ve'na'ara. Hema amadu vehema, shama'u behemot beharim. Baderech el ha'ir hem zacharu yamim beharim. And last on the oral review, number 5. Hamelech malach Birushalayim. Hu malach ba'ir v'ha'achim malchu beharim. Hamelech shamar anashim v'ha'achim shamaru behemot. Hem shalchu behemot la'ir v'hu shalach anashim leharim. Let's go through the vocabulary now. Again, we are going through the verbs. They are starting to give us just the root form with the dot in between. As I read it, I will read it in the third person masculine singular form of the pa'al, of the perfect tense. And we'll do it that way. And a reminder, these vocab words, along with any other vocab words in this chapter, including idioms, will be up on Quizlet, so in flashcard form. So it gives you plenty of opportunity to practice, practice, practice. And as I've said many times, I will say many times more, this is really the key here. There are two things that I will stress in this class and that we will emphasize. One is opportunities to read the Hebrew. Don't pass up any chance you can to read the Hebrew. The more often you read, the easier it will become, especially given that once you've learned the Hebrew letters and vowels and their pronunciations, it's not going to change. So the more you practice reading it and seeing it as you're reading it, those letters and vowels will become easier and easier to you. But the second point, and this is the power and importance of vocabulary, is that when we read, and if you ever listen to a first grader, second grader read, it's frustrating because they're reading it letter by letter, and you want to say, no, look at the word, read the word. Well, we're doing the same thing as we begin now. We're reading letter by letter because that's what we know. But the more vocabulary we have and we begin to recognize words, when you say Yisrael on the page, automatically you recognize it before you even get to it. So you can just speed through that one. So any words that you know, it's going to make your reading ability to be much faster. So that's the importance of the vocabulary. Do not go on from this chapter to the next chapter until you've gotten all of the vocabulary from this chapter and previous chapters down perfectly. What that means is you can look at the translation exercises and you can do them. It doesn't have to be quick, but as you look at a word, you recognize the word. You don't struggle with it. You don't try and remember what it is. If you're struggling with it, remembering it, make a note and practice, practice, practice that word until it becomes second nature to you. That's the key. That's what I want you to focus on as we continue. All right, so let's go through the vocabulary here. So achal, which means to eat, or in the past tense, ate. Amar, which is say, or he said. Anachnu, we. Ani or anochi, both mean I. And as I've read in various places, the reason there are two forms is one, the anochi is the more formal, more ancient form, if you will, kind of like, not exactly, the these and thous in the King James. But because this word appears in biblical, you need to learn it. You need to remember it. But ani and anochi mean exactly the same thing, and that is I. And of course, I can be both either masculine or feminine, singular. So ani, anochi. At, you, feminine, singular. There's no vowel after it. There's just a silent shava, so it's at. Don't put any other sound after the T. At. Ata, you, masculine, singular. Atem, you, masculine, plural. Aten, you, feminine, plural. Yashav, sit, settle, reside. He sat, he settled, he resided. Lo, no or not. Lechem, bread or food. Lifnei, before or in front of. Literally, just so that you see this, and this happens a lot in Hebrew. But if you actually look at the words here, you see panei, which you haven't learned yet, but it means face. And the lamed is the preposition to or for. So it's to the face, is what it literally means, to the face. But the way we would translate it in English is before or in front of. Take, lachach, lachach, take. And al, upon, about, on, or over. I believe we've had el already, which means to. And if you put those together, you get el al. And El Al Airlines from Israel. It's to the above. It's to the over. I've also El Al can be translated as above, but that's El Al Airlines. That's where that comes from. Okay, where that came from. So what we're learning here mostly are the pronouns. Very, very important to memorize the pronouns. Why? Among other reasons, is that you're listening to the pattern. So when you say I, ani, you, ata, or you, at, you're getting that last part, that e, that ta, and the t. You're hearing that because those are going to be the endings that we'll put on verbs and other things for pronouns that mean. I ate would be achalti. I ate, E. So you get that E ending, and you begin to hear the patterns, hear the format. And so if you have these memorized, you're also getting those endings memorized, you're hearing them. Atem, aten. Notice that you masculine and you feminine plural are only different in the last letter, the mem and the nun. The nun is, you'll often see the nun as the feminine letter, a tem and a ten. So on the ends of verbs, you'll see tem and ten added to it to mean you feminine or you masculine. So these pronouns become very important to really, really be solid with, partially because you're getting those endings in the back of your mind so that you'll hear them and make it easier for you when we get to adding those endings to the verbs. So on page 51 is the chart so that you see all of the subject pronouns together, ones we learned in the last chapter, the ones we're learning in this one. So ani, ata, at, hu, and he. Who is he? He is she. Who and he. And that's in the singular. In the plural, we have anachnu, atem, aten, haim or hema, and hena. Now, Your book doesn't give you this, but you'll also occasionally see hain, just like you will for they masculine. You'll see they feminine in just the two-letter form where the final hey drops off. But in this book, generally you're looking for hey na as the feminine and hey ma as the masculine. Again, why are there two forms? Well, probably because of what we talked about with ani and anochi. One is an older form, one is a more modern form, but they're both going to be used in the reading in biblical Hebrew. So their note here, first person singular plural pronouns, I and we, used for both masculine and feminine. We kind of should know that already from English. And then second person also have masculine and feminine forms. Okay, so these are the pronoun charts. Remember them, and you can also start remembering. We'll get to this when we get to the verbs. Remember e, ah, new, tem, ten. Okay, and then he and she. All right, that's your chart. So now we're going to get into verbs and their patterns, and this is where we've talked about the importance of knowing your pronouns. So these verbs and pronoun endings are slightly different than the ones that we're going to learn now because they don't immediately take from the forms of their pronoun. So who and he aren't necessarily reflected in the pattern of the verb. So he is always going to be just the root form. And then she is always going to be the root form plus hey. All right, so that's the way you recognize those two. And then both male and female, masculine, feminine for they is oo, in both cases. So it doesn't really, you can't really learn in learning the pronoun haim or hena or hema, you're not going to recognize the ending of oo. So these, partly I'm sure why they gave you these separately. So you still need to remember these, but it'll be a little easier when we get to the rest of the pattern. You'll see the endings of your pronouns becoming very important in them. Now, here's something else I want to point out. So this is called the Pa'al pattern. Pa'al pattern. Do you have to know this? No, but if you do, remember the name of the patterns because every verb has its name and its pattern name. And here's what the pattern name gives you. The pattern name tells you that under the first letter in the root, you'll see the kamats in every case, except when it doesn't. Under the second letter of the verb, doesn't matter what letter it is, but under the second letter is the verb, the vowel rather, patak. So kamats patak. This is a combination that you can begin to look for when you're reading Hebrew, even if you don't know the word. If you see this combination, you can maybe guess that the word is a verb of some form. It's the verb of the sentence because it has this pattern. Now there are other patterns, but right now we're focusing on the perfect tense of the Hebrew verbs, and this pattern is what will be consistent in most cases here. We'll see the exceptions in a minute. But if you memorize the fact that this is the pa'al verb, it gives you the pattern of the vowels that go under it. The ah, pa'al, ah. Okay, that's called the pa'al pattern. Now, something else I want to point out. Notice the number 13 here, and notice it in your book on page 52. These are, and we haven't talked about this in great detail before, and it's probably very important that I do make sure that you know it. This is a reference to the notes section, which is in the back of your book. We're going to talk about that in a little more detail in just a moment, but I want to point it out to you here. So the note in the back of the book says that the pa'al is also called the call, just the call pattern. Okay. it just depends on what book. I don't know which is more popular. I like Pa'al because, again, it really gives you that distinctive vowel sound for this pattern, whereas Kal doesn't really give you that, unless you say Ka'al, but that's not the name of the pattern. It's just the Kal with a kuf, which is why it's written with a Q here. So the Kal pattern. So you'll see both. You'll see Kal and Pa'al, but I like memorizing it as the Pa'al pattern. So that's the note. Pay attention to that. There are 7 of these patterns, and then each of those 7 have other portions to them. But the perfect tense form is what we're learning now, and what we will learn for a little while longer. We have the Pa'al pattern, and they're made by adding signal letters to the end of a verb root. And I think I showed you this before, but the beautiful thing about the Hebrew, just to remind you again, is in the past tense, the perfect tense, which is mostly past, not all, but the idea of the past tense is something that's already happened. It's at the before time, the end time. So it's something when the root is added to at the end, it means it's reflecting the past. When we get to the imperfect tense, which is generally future, something that hasn't happened yet or is in the process, but generally it hasn't happened yet, you'll see the add-ons, the prefixes, added to the beginning of the verb, also to the end. But the beginning is where you will see the prefixes in the future tense or the imperfect tense. So that, again, it's at the beginning. It's something that is either happening now or it will happen as you continue. So again, you see that pattern for Hebrew that I think is really neat, makes it easier to remember. So if it's at the end, it's past. If the suffix, if it has suffixes, it means it's in the past tense. If it has prefixes, it's in the future tense. Again, perfect or imperfect. There is no past or future as a tense itself in Hebrew, but perfect or imperfect. So that's the pattern. Those are the patterns, and I'm going to talk patterns a lot because that I want you to start seeing and hearing those patterns as we go through it. But for right now, note the numbers, 13, back of your book, and that will give you this note about the Pa'al and the Kal patterns. So on page 52, you'll see the chart that shows all of the Pa'al pattern for the Pa'al verbs. So the root, doesn't matter which verb you're going to plug into. If there's 3 letters here, it's the 3 letters of that verb. Okay. In some cases down the road, we'll look at will only be 2 letters, but your add-on, your suffix, is going to be added onto the root of the verb in the past tense, in the imperfect or the perfect tense, completed action. Okay, so that's what. And remember your pronouns: ani, ti, ata, ta, at, te, anachnu, nu, atem, tem, aten, ten. Okay, and then you have the root is he, add a hey to that, and you have she, add an u to the ending, and you have they, whatever the verb is. So memorize your patterns here. Now the vowels will change, and they'll change. I mean, you'll see that they're consistent here. Okay, so you have the kamatz patak shava, kamatz patak shava, kamatz patak shava, kamatz patak, kamatz, kamatz shava, kamatz. So they change here. The pattern changes, but there are some consistencies. Please don't get so hung up in the vowels, because what I want you to recognize is the endings and the roots. Doesn't matter what vowels are under them. If you have the root and the ending, then that's means this is I guarded. Shamarti, I guarded. Shamarta, you guarded. Shamart. And in this case, both of the shavas are silent. So you just put the two consonants together. Shamart, shamart. That's one of the rules of shava. When you have two shavas together at the end of a word, both are silent. Okay? Shamart. Shamar, he guarded. Sha, me, ra. Now, this was a note that we didn't talk about, but I do want to talk about it now. This was actually a note in the previous chapter. Remember the rule for shavas. If a shava follows a long vowel, it is vocal. So unlike most of the other shavas that we see, where it in the middle of a word, where it's a stop, it's a stopper for the syllable. In this case, it's vocal. So this would be, rather than saying sham ra, this is sham ra, shamara, 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 shamara. Okay, the same is going to be true with the plural form they, because again, you have the shava following a kamatz, a long vowel. So this is shamaru, 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 shamaru. Again, you might not even hear that shava in listening to someone pronounce Hebrew, because it's a short vowel, but it is there. So shamaru. So I will most likely emphasize it more than you might normally hear it, but I want you to hear that. Shamaru, shamaru, shamara. That will be the pattern. Okay? In the Hebrew, in the plural, your pattern is the same as here. Kamatz patak shaba, kamatz patak. Well, this changes, but here it's the same. Kamatz patak shaba. Now this changes here for reasons having to do with the accents. Again, who cares? I mean, it's not that important that you know this. And when you see it, to read it, you need to know if a shava appears at the beginning of a word, it is always vocal or almost always vocal. So this would be shema, okay? It's going to be silent here because it's following a short vowel. So this is shamar, shamar, tem. Shamar, tem. So just pay attention to your shava rules. If you don't get them right, who cares? As long as you recognize the word and can translate it. That's really important. I want you to be able to read, but I also just want you to be able to recognize the words as you're translating them, as you're going through it. That's our goal in learning biblical Hebrew. We're not learning modern Hebrew where you're having to write it or speak it in a way that is necessarily to be to be in communication with someone. So that's the key. So those are the things I want to point out here, that you have a vocal shava in the she and they. That's part of the note from the back of your book. I guess it is in this chapter. So in your note for 14 is that there's a vocal shava in the she form and the they forms. Okay, so that's note number 14, back of your book. And now to emphasize what I've already said, page 53, your book gives you the pronouns along with the verbs and their endings. So you can see the connection. Ani, shamarti. Ata, shamarta. At, shamart. Hu, shamar. He, shamra. Anachnu, shamarnu. Atem, shamartem. Aten, shamarten. And then Haim, Hema, and Hena are all going to be shamaru. Just for grins and giggles, if you go to the Google Docs page, you'll find something called the pronoun song, where I do record a melody. You might help, you might not. Who cares? You can choose to use it or not. It's just a fun thing that I did. But it's up on Google Docs page. So it's a pronoun song, or there might be others on Google. I haven't really found a lot. I found a few, but I haven't found a lot. Or on YouTube, I mean. Um, but again, it's there. If singing it helps you, and it often does for people, then that works. But the main thing, make up your own tune. Again, Three Blind Mice, Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, whatever tune works for you. So ti ta ta, I you, and then go on. You can do it. New tem ten, new tem ten, we you. Somebody distinguish singular from plural, but whatever it takes, I want these endings matching the pronouns to be solid in your mind. So when you see them, that's I did something, we did something, they did something. Even if you don't know the verb, you'll see the ending and you'll know it's referring to something that's masculine, plural. You can then look for something else in the subject section of the sentence to see what's masculine there, or whether it's plural, or whether it's singular or plural. So all of those things are going to come together, but you just have to practice, and then practice some more. Page 53 of your book, again, note the note, number 15, and that'll be on page 394. And we're going to take a look in just a moment at the back of the book a little bit. Now, if you haven't seen it yet, I do refer you to a video that I put up just prior to this video. It's up there under the Biblical Hebrew class on resource information. And in that video, I will show you the back of the book. I will show you some of the charts that are back here, the things that you should pay attention to and note. So that is there. In just a minute, I'll show you a sample page here that we'll take a look at. But your notes are important. But it's also important to recognize the patterns as you're seeing them. But the thing that this note talks about, and it gives a lot more information than you probably need. But here's the thing. That note talks about the 5 guttural letters and how it changes the vowels. I can't emphasize this enough in terms of just learning biblical Hebrew, which is what we are doing here, learning to read it, learning to translate it. Recognizing that the vowel changes isn't as important as recognizing the words. And frankly, as at some point, we're going to be discarding all of these vowels and just reading the consonants. So it makes sense that your focus needs to be on the consonants and not on the vowels. The vowels will change. Guttural letters are the worst. The guts gang, when they get into a word, they just mess everything up. So the guttural letters, the 5 guttural letters, the He, Chet, Ayin, Aleph, sometimes Resh, those letters will often make a problem with the vowel changes. So page 394 talks about that. And they also mention here the chart on page 371, which is in the verb spelling chart. We'll look at that on the next slide. So the other note here is that a Hebrew sentence can consist of one word. English, you have to have a subject, you have to have a verb. In Hebrew, the subject and verb can be all together. So we have, for instance, shamarti, I stood. Or this is amadti, I stood. So that's a sentence. You've written a sentence now. You don't need to say ani amadti. You can, and you often will see that, or you sometimes will see that. But the ani is not necessary because it's already here. So amadti is a complete sentence meaning I stood. Okay. Amarti, I said. Lachachti, I took. Malachti, I ruled. So all of those are complete sentences using one Hebrew word. This is from the back of your book, page 371, the verb spelling chart. Just want to kind of go over it. So this is what you're looking for. What you can't see over here, each of these verbs are numbered. The numbers are meaningless. They're just numbered in the order of their alphabetical orders, how they're listed in the charts. And you have lots of different charts. This is for the Pa'al pattern, and it gives you the root of the verb. So halach. And then it shows you what that root will look like with the spelling. So if you're going down the road, doing your exercises, and you're having to write a verb and you're not sure how it's spelled, rather than thumbing back through the book to try and find the verb, you can just go to the back of the book in Hebrew alphabetical order. You can find the verb here, and then figure out. Okay, if you're trying to say he walked, then you would spell it with a hey, comets, lamed, patak, a chaf, sofit, and don't forget your shavah at the end of the chaf. So that's how you'd write he if you're trying to figure that out. He walked. For translating a sentence. So all that's at the back of your book, the verb spelling chart, page 371. A lot of information there. It doesn't give you this top line here, but you can figure it out. It's always going to be the same. So I, you, masculine, you, feminine, he, she, we, and then you, masculine, feminine, they put together in one, but they're showing you that instead of the M for feminine, you're going to replace it with the N, sofit, the nun sofit, to make the feminine form. And then masculine, feminine, they is this pattern here, right? So that's the verb spelling chart. Page 53, your book talks about how to make negative sentences using the word lo. Lo means no or not. That's one of our vocab words for this chapter. And you can use it simply as the word no or not, but you can also use it to negate your verbs, to make your verbs negative. So for example, Avraham halach el ha'ir, Abraham went to the city. Or if you said Avraham lo halach el ha'ir, Abraham did not go to the city. Did not go. So literally, this is Abraham no went to the city. But obviously in English, you're not going to translate it that way. Amadnu baderech. We stood on the road. Lo amadnu baderech. We didn't stand on the road. And notice that the lo tends to come before the verb that it's negating. So that's your clue of how that's going to be a negative verb. It's going to be in the negative form, not the positive form. Okay, I did not do something rather than I did do something. That's all there is to negative sentences. This isn't in your books, but it will be posted in the Google Docs page. I'll put this chart up there. It's just a chart that I did showing the subject pronouns, the pronoun endings, the vowel pattern as part of that. Again, we're in the past, the perfect tense. The vowel patterns plus the endings. An example of the verbs here. If this helps, that's great. That'll be up there. Additionally, I will bring you another chart, and this one is pretty much blank. And what I've done is just copied and pasted the verb. I've given you all of the verbs that we know up here, just their root form, and then pasted them down here. And then you can add the endings. So you can make a copy of this from Google Docs and then Make as many copies of this on your computer as you want, and write it out, print it out, type it out, however you need to do it, and just practice putting the T, the ta, the t, okay, and then adding the hey here, adding the new, the tem, the ten, and the oo, and you can practice putting the vowels, the right vowels in, and all of that as you do that. Remember that if a verb ends in chaf sofit, when you put an ending on it, it's not going to be the chaf sofit anymore. It's going to be the regular chaf. So the chaf sofit changes to the chaf here. So that's the different form that you'll see. The chaf sofit only appears if it's at the very end of the word. So if you add something to it, logically, it's no longer going to be a chaf sofit. So those are the only notes that I have on this. And then the final chart that I have here that I will also post is the one with everything on it, all of the spellings and the endings, and that'll also be up on the Google Docs page. So if these are good resources for you, you're welcome to use them. I would just recommend that you get to the point where you don't need these charts, obviously, but they are there as reference tools if you need them. All of this, as I showed you, is also in the back of your book. It's all there as well. But I'll post these on Google Docs. You can look for them there. I did have, I might mention this before we go. I had someone ask me about posting the videos or posting the slides from the videos. So I do use PowerPoint in putting these together. I don't do that, and the reason I don't do that is because most of what's on these slides are from the book, the First Hebrew Primer book. So since I have mentioned to you that you need to purchase the textbook, I don't see any real reason to put the slides separately. If there is something in these slides that is not in the book and you have a question about or you want some more information about, please feel free to either email me, and you can get my email address from the Yeshiva B'nai Noach page. If you click on, I think there's something called More Information right at the top of the page, and then it'll show I think it'll show the email there. If not, just again write something in the comment section. That's usually the best place to start, because everybody, if you have a question, chances are other people do. And if there's something I can add to the information that you need, I will. If there's a handout that you are looking for that is not up somewhere, I will see what I can do about getting it for you. But that's it. I just don't really feel comfortable printing or putting access to the slides themselves. So that's why. But again, I want to be available to you either by email or by comment section. And if there's something, even after we've emailed each other and you need a phone conversation, I'm happy to do that as well as time permits. But please know that I'm here to help you as best I can, as much as I can. It's important to me that you learn, at least in these beginning stages, and feel comfortable setting that foundation. All right, so that's all I have to say about that. That has been the First Hebrew Primer Chapter 7, the Perfect Tense Review. We've done. We'll continue with the exercises in our next class, so be sure and join us for that. Otherwise, thanks for being a part of this class. For Yeshiva B'nai Noach, I'm Tom Averna. Shalom.